Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet with another session for today, which is Sunday. We'll be talking about decolonization in this particular installment. Our topic is decolonization. We'll be going over a few articles and a few documents, treaties as usual, to highlight the point of decolonization versus colonization. We're also going to learn about colonization. We can understand both sides. So decolonization is found in the third principles of the triple principles found in the preamble to the Act of Algeciras. Let me share the screen. Yes, so you would have so we're dealing with the triple principles: sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, and economic liberty without any inequality. And but we also got to understand some of the history involved in the establishment of these treaties. The first treaty to discuss really is the right of protection in Morocco. The right of protection in Morocco, the Treaty of Madrid, 1880, essentially gave or legalized colonization in Morocco by the Sultan. Unfortunately so. Why? Because at the time, the Moors were acquiescing, we were asleep. We're still asleep. So the emperor or the Sultan summoned 12 signatory powers to discuss these matters. So these 12 signatory powers were all consolidated, headquartered in Europe. And these European states were the ones that has been colonizing all of Morocco, all up and down what they currently call them the Americas, which is not, it's Morocco, Africa, parts of Europe, etc. This is the reason why there was only 12 signatory powers, which were the Christian powers that was summoned, not all the other heads of state. Many of the other heads of state were being colonized themselves. Can you all hear me well still?
Loud and clear, brother.
Okay, good. And so Islam. And so those 12 signatory powers were called upon, were summoned to Madrid for the Treaty of Madrid, right of protection in Morocco. And you'll see here, if you're going through your various stages of advancement, establishing your state, the brothers out of North Carolina, the Trust Territory of North Carolina, the brothers out of the Trust Territory of New York. We've been in conversation. You guys, I'm proud to see that you guys are making steps forward to establish your states and then potentially join the WRC. So as you see here, it says convention signed at Madrid, July 3rd, 1880, effective from July 3rd, 1880. Ratifications exchanged at Tangier, May 1st, 1881. Senate advised and consent to ratification, May 5th, 1881. These are the different processes that the United States undertook to become a signatory power and to have full powers that's found in good and due form within their state. Ratified by the President of the United States, May 10th, 1881, which means it was brought into law within the United States jurisdiction. Proclaimed by the President of the United States, December 21st, 1881. Ratification of the United States deposited at Tangier, March 9th, 1882. Amendment, implementation, and termination, in part, previous of the General Act of Algeciras. So see, they're talking about the General Act of Algeciras now, right? Even though this is the Madrid Convention. But check out why they're saying that. It says provisions of the Act of Algeciras of April 7, 1906 prevail over any conflicting provision, right? So the Act of Algeciras supersedes any other treaty. And the Act of Algeciras gave us back the power and the authority to decolonize Morocco, all right? Keeping in mind, again, the Treaty of Madrid gave them certain rights and privileges based in colonization in Morocco, to include the protections of the subjects of Morocco, which are the Moorish subjects. Okay, so it says it prevailed over any conflicting provisions. Article 11 implemented by Article 60. They love Article 11 and they love Article 60. Article 11 of the Treaty of Madrid, Article 60 of the Act of Algeciras. We'll touch on those to understand what it's really saying. However, they hate Article 15. They absolutely hate it. So look at what it says here. Extraterritorial jurisdiction in Morocco relinquished by the United States, October 6, 1956. Article 15 relating, so it says Article 15 relating to what? Moroccan nationality, not Moorish American nationality, not American Moor nationality, not Negro, Black, colored, African American nationality, not Aboriginal nationality, not Cherokee or any type of Indian nationality, Moroccan nationality. But they're saying that it's obsolete and without effect. Well, that's a bold-faced lie. Your nationality can never be obsolete and without effect. That's an absolute violation of human rights. Just cogence, peremptory. And the peremptory no international law, talking about principles that from which there cannot be any derogation. Can you all still hear me?
Islam.
Are you there still?
Islam.
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Islam, we hear you loud and clear.
I appreciate it. From which there cannot be any derogation. So there is no derogations as it relates to any nationality. It goes, well, okay, there's a specific document in international law that directly, it came out in 2007. We're familiar with it. I'll give you a hint. Obama signed it. What document is that?
The rights of indigenous people.
That's correct. Specifically, Article 6. It says that everyone has a right to a nationality. So the rights of indigenous people says that every indigenous people, all indigenous peoples have a right to a nationality. However, the United States sitting here trying to say that the Moroccan nationality is obsolete and without effect. Yeah, okay. That's BS. The Moroccan nationality is still has its full effect. Islam. So this was their process. Those who are establishing your states, take a mental note of this, because you got to learn this process. You'll learn it as you through the WRC as we go through our various stages of advancement. Moors how to operate their government. So we'll get into the preamble real quick. So I'm going to make a point here. I want you all to pay attention to what it is that I'm about to say. So here you've got all the signatory powers, right? President of the United States of America, right? The Emperor of Germany, Prussia, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, France, the French Republic, the United Kingdom and Great Britain and Ireland, Italy, obviously Morocco, the Netherlands, right? Portugal, right? His Majesty the King of Sweden and Norway. These are all the signatory powers. Then the preamble goes on to say, keeping in mind, again, the Treaty of Madrid somewhat legalized the colonization in Morocco, colonialism. Having recognized the necessity of establishing on fixed and uniform basis the exercise of the right of protection in Morocco and of settling certain questions connected therewith, have appointed as their plenipotentiaries at the conference assembled for that purpose at Madrid, to wit, His Excellency, the President of the United States of America, General Lucius Fairchild, Envoy Extraordinary and Minister Plenipotentiary of the United States, near His Catholic Majesty. So pay attention to this word here, y'all. Somebody please mute your mic. There's something going on with the mic. Somebody mute yourself. Near. Y'all pay attention to this word. Near. Well, let me highlight the whole statement. Near His Catholic Majesty. Who is the Catholic Majesty? The Pope. So you come here. His Majesty the Emperor of Germany, etc., near His Catholic Majesty. His Majesty the Emperor of Austria, King of Hungary, Count Emmanuel Ludolf, so on and so forth. His Envoy Extraordinary and Minister Plenipotentiary, near His Catholic Majesty, the Pope. His King, His Majesty the King of Belgium, and all his other plenipotentiaries are near His Catholic Majesty, the Pope. Okay? His Majesty the King of Spain and all his plenipotentiaries are all near His Catholic Majesty, the Pope. Her Majesty, the Queen of the United Kingdom, right? Great Britain, so on and so forth, and all its plenipotentiaries, they all are where? Where are they? Near His Majesty, His Catholic Majesty, I should say, right? Now look at this. His Majesty the Sultan of Morocco, the Talib Sid Mohammed Vargas, his Minister of Foreign Affairs and Ambassador Extraordinary. Then we go on to His Majesty the King of the Netherlands. So you got the Sultan of Morocco, right? And then you've got, now we go into the King of Netherlands, who is also near His Catholic Majesty. Well, hold on a second. So all these people, so then we go on further, Portugal. Portugal is near the Pope. Who else is near the Pope? Sweden and Norway, right? Sweden and Norway is near the Pope. But hold on. So why is it that that language does not appear with the Sultan of Morocco? With the Sultan of Morocco, it says His Majesty the Sultan of Morocco, the Talib Sid Mohammed Vargas, his Minister of Foreign Affairs and Ambassador Extraordinary. That's it. Then you go on to His Majesty. So everyone before that and everyone thereafter, we're all near His Catholic Majesty. Whereas the Sultan of Morocco is nowhere near the Pope, His Majesty, His Catholic Majesty. All right, I'm gonna take a shot at the floor. Can anyone tell me what is this about? Can anyone tell me what does that mean? I'm listening. And if not, just say we don't know. But I'm gonna give you all a chance to I'm gonna give you all a shot to answer that question. Why is it that everybody else is near the Pope and not the Sultan? The question again was, why is it that the Sultan of Morocco is not near the Pope, where everyone else, all the other signatory powers, are near the Pope? What's this near His Majesty, His Catholic Majesty all about? Can anyone answer that question?
Jurisdiction.
Christian Dominion.
Yeah.
They were in on the other side of the Atlantic in Europe.
No.
They needed permission from the Pope.
Yeah. Okay. All good questions. I mean answers. They are all under the authority of the Pope. The Pope is the boss man of all the signatory powers. So the Pope has the authority over all those signatory powers. They're all under his jurisdiction. However, not the Sultan or Morocco. That's why you see that Morocco is not near the Pope. So if the Sultan of Morocco is not under the authority of the Pope, then who's under whose authority? Remember, the Sultan summoned everybody.
They're all under Moor's authority, under the Sultan's authority.
They're all under the Sultan's authority. So all the signatory powers are under the authority of the Pope, and the Pope himself is under the authority of the Sultan, which means everybody's under the authority of the Sultan. You see? Y'all get it?
Yes, I get it, because they're a Christian nation.
Mm-hmm.
Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
quote unquote, the word near was just an archaic word for meaning under Christian dominions, under the
Jurisdiction.
Pope's authority.
Mhm.
Yes, and then you can also apply it to the chessboard next to the king and the queen. What do you have standing near or next to the king and the queen on the board? The bishops.
Mm.
You see, and so each state now, each trust territory has what they call the archdiocese, which is the bishop. Bishop seeing the governor. Follow that?
That's the overseer.
That's the overseer on behalf of the Pope. So now all of these signatory powers. So I'm glad I made the point clear. You guys see it, right? So those are the colonists. The Christian powers are the colonists under the authority of the Pope. This is where all these papal bulls come from. The Inter Dina, the Unum Sanctum Policies, the Secret Treaty of Verona, all these things. Is the papal bulls. It's coming from the Pope to the signatory powers for their advancement in colonization all across Morocco after the Moors fell asleep or were conquered. However, the Sultan was still in power, but the Sultan was a pale Arab himself, right? So, which is one of the reasons why he gave up a lot of the dominions based on colonialism in this particular treaty. So here we go. Who, in virtue of their full powers, recognized as being in good and due form, have agreed upon the following articles. So this is a Moorish treaty. This was written by the Sultan of Morocco, the government of the Sultan of Morocco. And you see this language. This is the reason why we can prove that the United Nations Charter is based in Moroccan law, because they use that exact same language. Who, in virtue of their full powers, recognized as being in good and due form. Much of the language that's coming off these Moorish treaties are found in the United Nations Charter and its several resolutions and conventions, etc. Okay, so we're not going to cover the entire article, the entire document, but we'll touch on certain provisions or articles that are germane to the conversation. So, like, for example, Article 2. Foreign representative at the head of a legation may select their interpreters and employees from among the subjects of Morocco, i.e. Black people. Subjects of Morocco are Black people. Subjects of Morocco are Negroes, Blacks, Colors, African Americans, Moorish subjects. Why is that? This is the expatriation document, one of my most favorite documents. See, you see here, American legation. I'm pointing that out again. American legation in Tangier. So it says, foreign representatives at the head of a legation. Foreign representatives at the head of a legation. What legation? Well, in this case, we're talking about the American legation. That's why it says American legation here. A foreign power as one of their legations. And what did he say? He said that Moorish subjects, right here, I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to highlight it, but this document won't allow me to. But you'll see 2 and 3. Let me zoom it. Here where it says 2 and 3, I can't highlight it, so be patient with me on this. 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. So all these signatory powers here in the Treaty of Madrid, right, have treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. This is one of the treaty relations. Okay, all right. So now that you understand that, look at what it says. Foreign representatives, Americans, French, German, these are the foreign representatives. The foreign representatives are all these people up here, right? Germany, United States, Russia, Austria, etc. Okay. Foreign representatives at the head of a legation may select their interpreters and employees from among the subjects of Morocco or others. These protected persons shall be subject to no duty, impost, or tax, whatever, other than those stipulated in Articles 12 and 13. So we're talking about Moorish proteges, your Obamas, your high-level politicians, those who are in government, who are protected persons under their jurisdiction, who have certain benefits, 501c3. So they don't have to pay no duty, impost, or tax. These are 501c3 Moors as well. Preachers and pastors. These are all Moorish proteges under their protection, who don't have to pay taxes. You see where it all began? Article 2 is where the sellout begins, because all these Moors or Negroes, preachers, pastors, rabbis, etc., they take the payout to not pay taxes. They sell us out to not pay taxes for their planes and their jets and their mansions and their millions of dollars. Okay, that's Article 2. Article 3, consuls, vice consuls, or consul agents having charge of a post and residing within the territory of the Sultan of Morocco shall be allowed to select but one interpreter, one soldier, and 2 servants from among the subjects of the Sultan, subject of Morocco, subject of the Sultan, unless they may require a native secretary. These protected persons shall in like manner be subject to no duty, impost, or tax, whatever, other than those stipulated in Articles 12 and 13. Another set of Moorish proteges. Article 4. If a representative shall appoint a subject of the Sultan to the office of consular agent in a town on the coast, such agent shall be respected and honored, as shall the members of his family occupying the same dwelling with him. So this is where the United Nations came up with the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Immunities. This is what this is talking about, diplomatic immunities, when it says that it has protections. And with his family has protections, his dwelling has protections, his vehicle has protections, right? And they like him shall be subject to no duty, impost, or tax, whatever, other than those stipulated in Articles 12 and 13. But he shall not have the right to protect any subject of the Sultan other than the members of his own family. So he can't protect the Negroes and blacks and the colors, but he can protect the members of his own family under diplomatic relations. Okay, so this is where they get that from. He may, however, for the exercise of his functions, have a protected soldier. Officers enacting charge of vice consulates, being subjects of the Sultan, shall, during the exercise of their function, enjoy the same rights as consular agents who are subjects of the Sultan. Islam? All right, Article 5. The government of Morocco recognizes the right of ministers chargé d'affaires and other representatives, which is granted to them the treaties to select the persons whom they employ, either in their own service or that of their governments, unless such persons shall be sheiks, or other employees of the government of Morocco, such as soldiers of the line or of the cavalry, in addition to the Magasnias in command of their guard. In like manner, they shall not be permitted to employ any subject of Morocco who is under prosecution. It is understood that civil suits commenced before protection shall be terminated before the courts which have instituted such proceedings. The execution of the sentence shall suffer no hindrance. Nevertheless, the local authorities of Morocco shall take care to communicate without delay the sentence pronounced to the legation, consulate, or consular agency. So you got to have a government to operate to then have a consulate. This is why the government that we spoke about earlier is not a government, but merely an organization. It's a consulate organization, whatever that means. You got to have a government to sanction the consulate. Come on. Or consular agency upon which the protected person dependent. As to those persons formerly protected, who may have a suit which was commenced before protection was withdrawn from them, their case shall be tried by the court before which it was brought. The right of protection shall not be exercised towards persons under prosecutions for an offense or crime, before they have been tried by the authorities of the country, or before their sentence, if any, has been pronounced, has been executed. Right. So this is where we understand. This is where we gain the understanding of civil and criminal jurisdiction, the courts, going to jail, things of that matter. All right. Article 6, protection shall extend to the family of the persons protected. His dwelling shall be respected. Here we go again. Declaration on Diplomatic Immunities of the Vienna Convention. It is understood that the family is to consist only of the wife, the children, and the minor relatives dwelling under the same roof. Protection shall not be hereditary. A single exception, which was established by the Convention of 1863, but which is not to create precedent, shall be maintained in favor of the Benchamal family. Nevertheless, if the Sultan of Morocco shall grant another exception, each of the contracting powers shall be entitled to claim a similar concession. So he's given all the contracting powers the entitlement to claim the similar concession. You see, Article 7. Foreign representatives, the United States, France, Germany, etc., all the colonialists, the colonists, foreign representatives shall inform the Sultan's Minister of Foreign Affairs in writing of any selections of an employee made by them. They shall furnish annually to the said minister a list of the names of the persons protected by them or by their agents throughout the states of the Sultan of Morocco, throughout the states. So the colonists are supposed to report to the Sultan all the people that's under their protection throughout the states of the Sultan of Morocco. Okay. Let's go back up. Signatory powers. United States of America belongs to the Sultan. Germany belongs to the Sultan. Hungary belongs to the Sultan. Austria belongs to the Sultan. Belgium belongs to the Sultan. Spain belongs to the Sultan. French Republic belongs to the Sultan. Great Britain belongs to the Sultan. Portugal belongs to the Sultan. Sweden and Norway belongs to the Sultan. Back down to the bottom, Article 7. Was it 7? Yep. Where is it at? Throughout the states of the Sultan of Morocco. So the Sultan of Morocco, all those states belong to the Sultan of Morocco. Well, there is no more Sultan of Morocco. Who are his heirs? Who are his successors? These several Moroccan states, which means that all those states are also under the authority and the jurisdiction of these several Moroccan states. Do you understand what I just said?
It is long.
Okay. This list shall be transmitted to the local authorities, who shall consider a person's enjoying protection only those whose names are contained therein. Skip past 8. All right, number 9. This one is the one. Servants, farmers, and other native employees of native secretaries and interpreters shall not enjoy protection. The same shall be the case with Moorish employees or servants of foreign subjects. What does that sound like, y'all? Don't that sound like slavery? The slavery that we were taught? Roots and all that?
Islam.
Servants, farmers, and other native employees. Who are the native employees? The Moors, the native people of the land. Of native secretaries and interpreters shall not enjoy protection. So the black people that was enslaved, they didn't enjoy protections, did they?
Islam, the case with Dred Scott.
Well, the case with Dred Scott is a little different, but he was also a slave himself. So yeah, essentially yes, right? The same shall be the case with Moorish employees or servants of foreign subjects. Nevertheless, the local authorities shall not arrest an employee or servant of a native officer in the service of a legation or consulate, or of a foreign subject or protected person, without having notified the authority upon which he is dependent, which will be Morocco. If a subject of Morocco in the service of a foreign subject, right? So if a slave who is working for a slave master shall kill or wound any person or violate his domicile, he shall be arrested immediately, but the diplomatic or consular authority under which he is shall be notified without delay. See, the Moorish subjects, the subjects of Morocco, had the right to petition consular court this whole time. This is why Dred Scott was found as a plaintiff in error, because he didn't petition consular court. Instead, he petitioned the Supreme Court as a citizen, but he wasn't a citizen. He wasn't of the United States. He was a subjugated Moor within the jurisdiction of the United States. As such, he was supposed to petition consular court. So that would be the authority, the consular authority under which he is, and shall be notified without delay. They violated that. They never petitioned consular court, or should I say, they never informed the Moorish subjects that they should and could petition consular court. Instead, what they did, they naturalized us to turn us into citizens and keep the game going. Do we understand what I'm saying thus far? Are there any questions to this point?
Islam, brother, I do got a question.
Understand.
Yeah.
Islam, brother Abdul, how you doing, brother Ross? Let me
Brother
ask you
Ross.
a question, brother. We always, look back at that timeline around Dred Scott, and we speak about, Morris Council courts. But when we look at the treaties, we seeing that a lot of the jurisdiction were coming from overseas at the time. So let me ask you, around that time, where could we consider that there was a Morris Council court that was erected here at Morocco during, I guess I would say 1857? We could go from that Dred Scott case till, present day, or we can say till 1912 to the Treaty of Fez. Where or what was the jurisdiction? Do we have that, to where those cases could have actually been taken to?
Well, we were subjugated, so it wasn't Moors operating consular court over here. The colonists were operating consular court. Remember, Roosevelt closed down consular court in 1956.
Correct.
So, plus also keep in mind that the seat to the government of Morocco wasn't necessarily on this side of the Atlantic.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It was on the other side of the Atlantic, in Tangiers.
Would it be safe to say, is this the reason why we would have had to petition to the French consulate, being that they were given the treaty in 1912 to
exactly, that will be post 1912, but
Gotcha.
This right here is 1880.
Right. So where would that jurisdiction, or who would be the protectorate, to deal with those issues here when we're talking about,
That would have been France post 1912. The Article 6 of the Treaty of Fez deal with the protection of Moroccan subjects.
So pretty much is this like how we can see how a lot of the brothers, speaking of like Noble Jew Ali, we can go to Malik El-Shabazz, we can go to, many others, Muhammad Ali, that went over to Hakupta to get their Hajj, so to speak, because, considered to be that was the delegation that would recognize, what they say, international law and nationality once they've taken that Hajj. Would it be safe?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, it's very interesting that those who came back when Malcolm X came back, he came back as El Malik Shabazz, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, El Hajj El Malik Shabazz, right?
Islam.
So, yeah, you could potentially say that, but during the time of Malcolm X, I'm thinking after 1960, So there was no Empire of Morocco at that time anyway. Why? Because
19 relinquishment.
well, not just the United States relinquished consular court, but also in 1956, the Empire of Morocco, the Sultan reduced himself to king.
The kingdom, correct.
Kingdom of Morocco in 1956. So the empire, that's the year that the empire went into its if you will, its political coma or
Universal family.
Islam. So yeah. Any other questions?
Islam, I yield.
So Article 11, let's take a look at what they love. So they love Article 11. The right to hold property is recognized in Morocco as belonging to all foreigners. You see? But there's a stipulation to it though. Except what took place is acquiescence, a stupor. Because what's the next statement here or sentence? The purchase of property must take place with the previous consent of the government. What government? The Moroccan government. And the title of such property shall be subject to the forms prescribed by the laws of the country. Okay. So any questions that may arise concerning the rights shall be decided according to the same laws with the privilege of appeal to the Minister of Foreign Affairs stipulated in the treaties. So they could appeal. So if the government of Morocco does not want to allow them to purchase a specific property, that can be appealed through the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Morocco. So let's go back up here. Where is it? Oh, all the way to the top, actually. So right here. Article 11, implemented by Article 60 of the General Act, right? So Article 11 and Article 60 go hand in hand. Article 11 of the Treaty of Madrid, Article 60 of the Act of Algeciras. All right. Let's go to the Act of Algeciras. I wanted to start off here, but we'll go back. That's fine. Control F, 60. Let's see, Article 60. There we go, Article 60. And it says, in accordance with the right granted by Article 11 of the Madrid Convention, we just finished reading that, foreigners shall have the right to acquire property throughout the Sharifian Empire. And His Majesty the Sultan shall issue to his administrative and judicial officers such instructions as may be necessary for them not to refuse the registration of deeds without lawful cause. See, they have to go through the Sharifian authorities, the Moorish governments. Subsequent transfers, either by deeds between living parties or by death, shall continue without hindrance. In the ports open to commerce and within a radius of 10 kilometers around such ports, His Majesty the Sultan generally and without it being necessary, henceforth for foreign subjects to obtain a special permission for each purchase of property, now grants the consent required by Article 11 of the Madrid Convention. At Qasar El Kebir, Arzila, Azamor, and eventually in other towns of the coast or the interior, the general authorization stated above is likewise granted to foreigners, but only for purchasers within a radius of 2 kilometers around those towns. Wherever foreigners may have acquired property, they will be permitted to erect buildings in compliance with regulations and usage, right? So you see all these buildings popping up everywhere. They've been erecting buildings since 1906. Before authorizing the execution of deeds for transferring property, the Qadi, which is a tax assessor, the Moorish tax assessor, will have to satisfy himself of the validity of the title in conformity to the Mohammedan law. The Moxen shall designate in each city and district specified in this article the Qadi who shall have charge of such verification. So there's still stipulations involved in them holding property, which they have been violating all the way up till this point. So they have to course correct in this manner, and we'll be coming after that course correction when the time is right, which is decolonization. We will address this. All right, back to Article 11.
What's interesting about that, brother, is about the 10 square miles that, is also within the United States Constitution about the seaports and their jurisdiction. So with that said, every state was supposed to, that is erected, was limited to 10 square miles from that seaport. Yeah.
Islam. But they have also they have crossed over those jurisdictions, those boundary lines, right?
Right.
They went all the way across, right?
Extraterritorial jurisdiction. That's the acquiescence that they have taken up over the land.
Yep, because the Moors been too busy sleeping. The subjects of Morocco. Article 12, foreigners and protected persons who are the owners or tenants of cultivated land, as well as brokers engaged in agriculture, shall pay the agricultural tax. They shall send to their consul annually an exact statement of what they possess, delivering into his hands the amount of the tax. So they got to pay taxes. See, that's the exchange. So we allow you, the Sultan allowed them to hold property and erect buildings. However, in exchange for what? Taxes.
National tax debt, 31 trillion and counting.
Correct. So if I'm a landlord, I'll let you stay in the house in exchange for what? Rent payments. Same difference, except in this case, it's taxes. He who shall make a false statement shall be fined double the amount of the tax that he would regularly have been obligated to pay for the property not declared. In case of repeated offense, this fine shall be doubled. The nature, method, date, and appointment of this tax shall form the subject of a special regulation between the representatives of the powers, right, as the colonist, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of His Sharifian Majesty, that will be Morocco. Two different parties, representatives of the powers and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of His Sharifian Majesty. They report all the signatory powers, representative powers, colonial powers, Christian powers, report to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Moroccan Empire or Sharifian Majesty. Islam? All right. Foreigners, protected persons, and brokers owning beasts of burden shall pay what is called the gate tax. The apportionment and the manner of collecting this tax, which is paid alike by foreigners and natives, so foreigners and natives got to pay this tax, shall likewise form the subject of a special regulation between the representatives of the powers and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of His Sharifian Majesty. The said tax shall not be increased without a new agreement with the representatives of the power. So this is the reason why, this is part of the main reasons why colonialism was taking place and it was allowed, because it was the greed of the Sultan seeking taxes. So he reigned in the order because they were belligerently taking over stuff. Okay, so now no problem. You can continue on your quest. However, let's reign in the order of you paying these taxes for taking over all this land. All right, 14, the mediation of interpreters, native secretaries, or soldiers of the different legations or consulates. When persons are concerned who are not under the protection of the legation or consulate, shall be permitted only when they are the bearers of a document signed by the head of a mission or by the consular authority. So we still maintain authority, but it was not necessarily the subjects of Morocco. The government of Morocco itself maintained the authority, while at the same time, there were subjects of Morocco who were subjugated under the jurisdiction of these several states or colonial powers. So if you had Moors, you got Moors in Sweden, you got Moors in Norway, you got Moors in the United States, you got Moors in Great Britain, you got Moors in France, you got Moors in Portugal. All these Moors are all identically subjugated through naturalization and other. Okay, so the Naturalization Act came out in 1870. The Treaty of Madrid, Rights of Protection in Morocco, came out in 1880, 10 years later, because the colonists were subjugating and naturalizing Moors all across Morocco, all through the Sultan's states. Because remember, France belongs to the Sultan. Germany belongs to the Sultan. Norway, Great Britain, etc. These are the Sultan's states that belong to the Sultan. That includes the United States. So therefore, he had to come with Article 15, based on the Naturalization Act of 1870. Moors were being naturalized all across Morocco, all throughout the Sultan's states. I'm making those points. I'm trying to drive that point home so that Moors can understand the authority and the power that we have. Because there is no more Sultan. The new Sultan now is these Moroccan states, which means that the empire, once it comes back online, takes back ownership and authority and control over all the Sultan's states. Russia, Germany, France, Portugal, Norway, Sweden, etc. So there were naturalized and subjugated Moors in all of those several jurisdictions. So here comes Article 15. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country, right? All those countries are foreign to Morocco, but they're still the states that belong to the Sultan. And who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. That's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2 goes on to say, foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions. So the laws of the foreign country will apply to you, to any subject of Morocco, in regards to all its effects without any restriction. If you do not choose to go back home, Dorothy, if you do not choose to go back to Morocco, if you choose not to choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire. So if you remain subjugated, naturalized within the jurisdiction of the foreign country, the laws of that country will apply to you without any restrictions. Back to the expatriation document. Again, 2 and 3 says, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. It was established by the Convention of Madrid, concluded July 3rd, 1880. You see? He's telling us what happened to us in this expatriation document. We lost our nationality by becoming naturalized or protected by a country that had treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. And he's telling you what treaty and specifically which article it came from. Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid, exactly what we're going over right here. I don't understand or know how this got by us all these years. Moors are quite familiar with this document right here. The expatriation document, we're familiar with this. And we didn't see the answer to the test in reading this. It goes on to say in this document, the above, after going over Article 15, right? So after Hoffman Phillip, who is go back up real quick to show you all, who is the Chargé d'Affaires, Mr. Phillip, Chargé d'Affaires to Mr. Root. So Chargé Phillip, Mr. Phillip was reporting to Mr. Root about, in 1906, about the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras. And he goes to say, there are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this country, of this non-Christian country, are based entirely on the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. And then he goes on to say, there are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire. Okay. Various Christian countries. There you are right here. These are your various Christian countries, all of which stand next or near His Majesty the King, His Majesty the, what they call him? Where is it at? His Catholic Majesty, right? They all stand near His Catholic Majesty. These are the various Christian powers that are the colonists that he's referring to in this document. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions, that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines, I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing. So he's trying to confine himself because he don't want to expose too much. And then it goes, number one, it says, citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. And then he goes to tell you, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. Then he pointed out the article that stipulates that, specifically paragraph 2 of Article 15. Then he goes on to say, after going over Article 15, he goes on to say, the above ruling has never yet been acted upon, and should this at any time be contemplated seriously, a large number of naturalized people, American and others, residing in Morocco will be affected thereby. So right now we are contemplating this thing seriously, which means naturalized people and Americans and others residing in Morocco will be affected thereby. There's going to be a lot of people that's going to be affected based on the fact that these Moroccan Moors have come together to establish their states. To do what? Adhere to Article 15, paragraph 1. Let me come over here. Sorry, y'all, I'm bouncing back and forth. Trying to give you trying to be as detailed as possible. Right here, Article 15. This paragraph right here. This is a nationality clause, Moors. That's a nationality clause. This is what's pulling us out of the trick bag. So yes, the Sultan gave the authority to the colonists to go continue with their colonization. However, he did not allow them to keep us as subjugated Moorish subjects by enacting Article 15, paragraph 1. But what we have done is we have ignored paragraph 1 and we continued on as naturalized people. So that being the case, this is what's been taking place with us here in what they call America. Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Emmett Till, you name it. Malcolm X. So our subjugation and the criminality that's been taking place against us has been done so by treaty rights, which makes it legal and lawful for them to do what they've been doing to us, because we ourselves failed to do what the yellow highlighted paragraph 1 says, which is choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire. We never did that. We remain subjugated as naturalized Moors within the jurisdiction of America. And therefore, we suffered all the injustice that we have suffered. This is where our injustice have come from. So then we come back to the Act of Algeciras. So in 1880, he put together the Treaty of Madrid, giving up the empire, basically, to a degree, not giving it up, but, you know, allowing certain things to take place within the empire that was not necessarily beneficial to us, except for Article 15. So now he thought proper, what, 26 years later, 1906, to give it all back to the Moors. Gave it all back to the Moors, which is why the Act of Algeciras supersedes all other articles, or should I say, all other treaties and its conflicting articles. So what does it say in the preamble? Keep in mind, Moors, we've already went through these, but we're you know, it's good to, redundancy is good to remember these things, but we're still going into a different read. I just want to cover the treaty real quick. In the name of Almighty God, His Majesty the Emperor of Germany, see, here we go again, King of Persia, Russia, in the name of the German Empire, His Majesty the Emperor of Austria. These are the signatory powers yet again being summoned, yet again. King of Bohemia, the King of Hungary, King of Belgium, Spain, President of the United States, President of the French Republic, His Majesty the King of the Kingdom, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, the British dominions, right? All these different Emperor of India, etc. The King of Italy, Sultan of Morocco, Her Majesty the Queen of the Netherlands. All these are signatory powers. The same signatory powers found here in the Treaty of Madrid. It says, inspired by the interest attaching itself to the reign of order. So he's reigning in the order, peace and prosperity in Morocco, and recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms based upon the triple principle of the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty the Sultan, the integrity of his domains, and economic liberty without any inequality. This is where we're headed to here, Morris. Economic liberty. Economic liberty without any inequality. Currently, all of our Moroccan states are here. Integrity of domains. Some of them are here. Sovereignty and independence, which is the establishment of your state. So sovereignty and independence is the establishment of your state. Integrity of domains, right, deals with the laws, your legislation, your consular court, your courts and your laws, your law enforcement. And then economic liberty without any inequality represents decolonization as a whole. All right. Then it goes on to say, without any inequality, have resolved upon the invitation of His Sharifian Majesty. So His Sharifian Majesty, the Sultan, have invited all these signatory powers, his states, to call together a conference at Algeciras for the purpose of arriving at an understanding upon the said reforms, as well as examining the means of obtaining the resources necessary for their application, and have appointed as their delegates plenipotentiaries the following. So then it goes through the signatory powers again: Germany, Prussia, what's that? Let's see, His Catholic Majesty, Christian Count, you know, all these names. The King of Bohemia, King of Hungary, so on and so forth, etc. Okay. Then it goes on to say, so now look at the names for Morocco. His Majesty the Sultan of Morocco, represented by who? El Hajj Mohammed Ben El Arbi Torres, his delegate at Tangier and ambassador extraordinaire. El Hajj Mohammed Ben Abdesalam El Makri, so on and so forth, right? So what was Malcolm's name? El Hajj Malik El Shabazz? Okay. Just saying. I'm not sure about that connection, but there's something there to it. And it goes on to say, who furnished with full powers which were found in good and due form. So here we got that same language. So here we got the same language. Where is it? Oh, keep going. You got that same language. This is where the United Nations get this from. This is how you know that the United Nations is based out of Moroccan law, who, in virtue of their full powers, recognized as being in good and due form, have agreed upon the following articles. Same here. Same here. Who furnished with full powers which were found in good and due form, have in conformity with the program upon which his Sharifian Majesty and the powers have agreed, successively discussed and adopted. Same language. So now what does it say? A declaration relative to the organization of the police. So we're reorganizing the police and the military. 2, a regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. Chapter 3, an act of concession for a Moroccan state bank. Chapter 4, a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues. Chapter 5, a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. These are the ports and the taxes associated with that. And then chapter 6, a declaration relative to public services and public works. And having decided that these different documents might usefully be coordinated in a single instrument, they have united them in a general act composed of the following articles. And this is where we begin with, I don't know why it's faded. There we go. This is where we begin with Article 1, so on and so forth. We're not going to go into the whole thing at all. We've already did that. Just pointing out some things again. So this represents chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 represents decolonization. Economic liberty without any inequality. Once all those things are in place and all those things have been reclaimed, we have now forced decolonization in Morocco, which means now we have reached the level of economic liberty without any inequality, which means now the United States of America and the United States and the several colonies are now paying their due taxes and all the other revenues that comes from them as the tenants here in Morocco, under our authority, under our jurisdiction. This is decolonization. This is the Act of Algeciras of 1906. It's giving us back control over the police. It's giving us back control of the guns, the arms of war, the Moroccan state banks for the economy and the finances of the empire. It's given us back the taxation and the creation of new revenues. It's given us back control over the ports and the taxes that comes along with the usage of the ports. And it's given us back control over the public services and public works. That's decolonization. This is where we're headed. Islam. All right. Let's go into a slightly different read here. Somebody, can you please read decolonize for me here? In this definition, this is the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Anyone?
Islam. Decolonize, decolonizing, decolonizes. Transitive verb 1. To free a people or area from colonial status. To relinquish control of a subjugated people or area.
Oh. To relinquish control of a subjugated people or area. Probably should say and or area. Because our people are subjugated and so is our land.
Yeah.
Right? Go on to definition 2.
2, to free from the dominating influence of a colonizing power, especially to identify, challenge, and revise or replace assumptions, ideals, values, and practices that reflect a colonizer's dominating influence, and especially a Eurocentric dominating influence.
Imagine that. It wasn't Moors who wrote this. The colonists wrote that.
Yeah.
To free from the dominating influence of a colonizing power, especially to identify, challenge, and revise or replace assumptions, ideas, values and practices that reflect a colonizer's dominating influence, and especially a Eurocentric dominating influence. So Moors have taken on what was that statement that there's a statement that Moors use. Can't recall
It's
used. Go ahead,
to
brother.
amalgamate with the European nations.
There you go.
Say that again, brother.
To amalgamate.
Oh, amalgamate.
Yeah. Right. And taking on their likeness, their way of being, the way that they do things. Man, you acting like a white boy. You know what we say? You know what we be saying? Y'all acting like the white man. Right? Because why? We have taken on the assumptions, ideas, values, and practices that reflect the colonizer's dominating influence.
Yeah.
We have assimilated into their way of being. Which means that decolonization deals with, it's not just the act of removing a power, a Christian power, a colonizing power, and their grip over the subjugated people in the land, but also decolonizing the mind, right? Not just the land, but also the mind of the indigenous people who have been colonized. And we've been colonized for over 200 years. So imagine the mindset, especially post-integration. Oh, it got worse. Oh, it got worse.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the definition for decolonization. So what is colonization? Let me try to increase this. Okay. All right, brother. Same reader, could you please read this here real quick?
Colonization or colonization is a process of establishing foreign control over target territories or peoples for the purpose of cultivation, often by establishing colonies and possibly by settling them. Colonization is sometimes used synonymously with settling, as with colonization in biology. But while colonization historically involves settling, colonization through settling is the particular form called settler colonialism.
Yeah.
Colonization is, in this case, structured and enforced by the settlers directly, while their or their ancestors, metropolitan country maintain linkage or control through the settlers' colonialism. Settler colonization either rules as a minority group through oppression and assimilation the indigenous people, or by establishing themselves as the demographic majority through driving away, disadvantaging, or outright killing the indigenous people, as well as through immigration and births of metropolitan as well as other settlers.
You see what that said? Colonization, in this case, structured and enforced by the settlers directly, while their or their ancestors, metropolitan country maintains linkage or control through the settlers' colonialism. Settler colonization either rules as a minority group through oppression and assimilation.
South Africa.
Exactly, and even here, the indigenous peoples. We just talked about that. We have been assimilated into them, right? That's why decolonization deals with the mind as well, not just the land. The subjugated people. What about the subjugated people? The minds of the subjugated people. They have assimilated. or by establishing themselves as the demographic majority through driving away. So they establish themselves as the demographic majority. So you see, they're talking about minority and majority groups, right? So who are the minority? Black people, white people.
Okay, but what they're saying is the colonizer can either be a minority. That's why I said South Africa, because in South Africa they were the minority, but through oppression and assimilation of the indigenous people, they were able to like subjugate them. But in our case, they actually became the majority because they brought all their people over.
Fair enough.
And of course, their
However,
demographics just took the advantage of all of that situation.
Duly noted. Good point. However, keep in mind that it's not based in numbers either, especially as it relates to here.
Islam.
So, you know, the minority group, when they call us minority, it's not because we're smaller numbers, because of our infant
status. Our status, right.
Well, the status is based on our infant mind. See, we are the adults in the room, yet we're begging them for legislation. That's a child.
Right.
And then they have taken on the position of a majority, which is those who are governing everything. So it's not necessarily a number of people, because in all actuality, most of the American citizens are not necessarily white people, right?
Exactly.
People from Nigeria, their passports.
They're basically saying we have the mind of a minor.
That's correct.
That's why we are considered in that minority.
That's correct. That's correct. Right. However, the brother point too was also that's exactly what it says when it says colonization either rules as a minority through oppression. Because see, they are, if you're talking numbers, then they are the minority group.
Islam, brother. The United States is actually recognized as the minority when it comes to the jurisdiction of Morocco. The people are actually recognized as the majority. So it is actually done throughout the world by minority group is how they made, you know, the majority of the people acquiesce to, you know, the so-called legislations that have been presented.
And so you're talking two different levels, numbers and mental state, right?
Right.
Brother, are the numbers. So as a number of people, they have subjugated the majority with what? Use of force, as it says down here. Disadvantages or outright killing the indigenous people. That's use of force. As well as through immigration, naturalization. Metropolitan as well as other settlers. Continue, brother. Finish up that read real quick. This particular article, this section of the article.
Okay. Let's see. European colonization of Australia, New Zealand, and other places in Oceania was fueled by explorers and colonists, often regarding the encountered land masses as terra nullius, empty land in Latin, resulting in laws and ideas such as Mexico's general colonization law and the United States manifest destiny doctrine, which furthered colonization. Despite countless declarations and referendums from the United Nations on the independence of colonial countries and peoples implemented since 1946, there are in the world still over 60 colonies, sometimes designated territories, including Puerto Rico, Guam, and Bermuda.
If you go back to study session 99, you'll see Jay Bay go over the decolonization process that Puerto Rico is undertaking, which they've been undertaking since 2002.
Wow.
Yeah, go back to study session 99, he breaks that down. And this whole thing about terra nullius, empty land, we've already discussed that on in the video titled "What is Uti Posidatus Juris?" We were going over Uti Posidatus Juris and it talked about the empty land. That the one of the colonist explorers thought proper to tell the other colonists that there is no such thing as empty land. It's all owned by indigenous peoples. Very interesting. All right. So this is what colonization essentially is, right? All right. Now let's go to
What's so interesting about that, brother? When you look at the Pope's letter that he addressed to Obama, those very said things that we were just reading about colonization are just very said things they were addressing, you know, the United States in that Pope's letter to Obama in 2014.
Mhm. Okay, so let's go into this article real quick. Identity and equity. Decolonization can't happen without the input of indigenous communities. How to decolonize your mind, your curriculum, your bookshelf. We've all seen these articles. Well, by the way, this was written October 9th, 2020 by Owen Oliver. We've all seen these articles make their rounds. In the midst of this summer, let me increase this so you can see it. All right. In the midst of this summer's protest against racism and police brutality, one organization after another released statements apologizing for past behavior and promising to do better by decolonizing their spaces. The word decolonization has become a white catchphrase by universities, museums, prestigious quote unquote institutions steeped in settler colonial frameworks. And this is the reason why we become more colonized, because we go into these institutions of higher learning thinking that we're learning something, but what we are learning is how to be more subjugated, more colonized mentally based on the curriculum. The curriculum itself needs to be decolonized. This is where the educational reforms comes into play. Remember, the Treaty of Fez talks about the 6 reforms that the French Republic was responsible for: administrative, judicial, educational, economic, financial, and military reform. So we need educational reforms to force mental decolonization, scholarly decolonization. We got to decolonize the schools and the information that's being taught. All right. These institutions try to remove the colonization they've built and sustained by adding new diversity requirements. They don't understand that you can't truly decolonize without listening to and uplifting local indigenous voices. In Eve Tuck and K. Wayne Yang's famous paper, Decolonization is Not a Metaphor, the authors explain how harmful it is to use the word decolonization without care for the input of indigenous people, specifically the sovereign nations and urban indigenous communities, the hood, the ghetto, okay, who were forced, relocated, and displaced from the land where such institutions are now housed. In higher education, this harm is perpetuated by colleges and universities that dismiss indigenous knowledge systems, furthering the intergenerational trauma experienced by students from our communities. This trauma is reinforced when campuses don't provide spaces for students to express themselves or to recreate systems of relationship building and knowledge sharing found in our communities. Systems that show respect both to those who are teaching and those who are learning. So what does it say here? True decolonization means genuinely listening to indigenous community members and creating shifts in the power of dynamics. True decolonization means genuinely listening to indigenous community members. Okay, let's come over here. Chapter 11, Declaration regarding non-self-governing territories. Article 73 of the Charter of the United Nations. What does it say here? It says, members of the United Nations which have or assume responsibilities for the administration to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment, and their protection against abuses. So when this says true decolonization means genuinely listening to indigenous community members, that's what this is referring to. B, to develop self-government to take due account of the political aspiration of the peoples and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions according to the particular circumstances of each territory, right? And its peoples and their varying stages of advancement. What does it say here? True decolonization means genuinely listening to indigenous community members. That's what this is saying. To develop self-government to take due account of the political aspiration of the people. So it's telling the United States and any of the colonizing powers that they must take due account of the political aspiration of the peoples and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions, according to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples and their varying stages of advancement. Give me a second here. Are you all still there?
It's on, Brother William.
Okay, good. To further international peace and security. C. D. To promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research, and to cooperate with one another. And see, to cooperate with one another, right? Oh, let's see here. Hold on a second.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, I'm back on the phone. So it says to promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research, and to cooperate with one another. How do you cooperate with one another? True decolonization means genuinely listening to indigenous community members. That's how that's done. To encourage research, cooperate with one another, and when and where appropriate, with specialized international bodies with a view to the practical achievement of the social, economic, and scientific purpose set forth in this article. And then the United States also has to do what? Or any colony. E, to transmit regularly to the Secretary General for information purposes, subject to such limitation as security and constitutional consideration may require. Statistical and other information of a technical nature relating to economic, social, and educational conditions in the territories for which they are respectively responsible, other than those territories to which chapters 12 and 13 apply. So they have to assist us as we go through our varying stages of advancement. We have to be in cooperation. They have to listen to the wisdom of the indigenous peoples and the indigenous community members in order to be successful with the process, the due process of decolonization. Okay, back to the read, the article. So this person, so he continues on by saying, I grew up in a family that used education to call out the historical wrongs that invaded our indigenous communities. My grandparents, Emmett and Georgia, were educators who met at Bacone College in Oklahoma. Together, they moved to my grandmother's homeland to teach at a primary school in Acoma, New Mexico. Later, they left for Washington State, where my grandfather was the head of Indian education. My grandparents constantly centered indigenous peoples in their work. They listened to people on their own journey of decolonization and merged them with the path of education. As a student at the University of Washington, I intended to carry on their legacy. Keep in mind, okay, so these are Indians, right? We already know what the deal is with that, $5 Indians and stuff. And they're not, and the ones that are actually, we know what the real Indians look like, right? They're Moroccans. But some of them have sold out anyway, right? They took on these treaties and subjugated themselves, considering the United States a great father and all the stuff. But we'll ignore those aspects and let's just focus on what decolonization is all about, regardless on the prima facie or whatever so-called tribal affiliation they claim. Creating a decolonized space first meant embracing the knowledge system facilitated by my kin. I wanted to create reciprocal learning environments where Native students and Native professors were learning together and from each other equally, and from each other equally as they would have outside of a Western academic setting. This was the basis of the Indigenous Research Family at University of Washington, modeled after Dr. Holly Barker's Pacific Islanders class at the Burke Museum of Natural and Cultural History, and with the guidance of Dr. Sven Hakanson Sugpiak. Native students curated a space of belonging alongside their ancestors' treasures. Although we met in a colonial museum, having the agency to repatriate their knowledge system led to empowerment. So you have to repatriate our knowledge system. You can't continue on with the expatriated knowledge system because it's based in colonialism. You have to repatriate everything. The mental state, the sovereignty of the state, the sovereignty of the people, etc. The culture, political aspirations, right? It allowed us to continue of reconciliation and paths decolonial practices. I got a phone call. I don't know if you guys can still hear me. I hope you still could hear me. Sometimes I have to let it sit for a little while before I can continue, and I just got a call from J Bay.
Yeah, we hear you.
Brother, you good? We can hear you, brother.
The lack of reciprocity within Western education highlights the uneven power dynamic embedded within both universities and settler colonial society at large. True decolonization means genuinely listening to Indigenous community members and creating shifts in the power dynamics that uplift Indigenous ways of connecting with the lived environment. That's interesting. Is that a typo? Okay. Institutions, including both universities and government systems, need to provide more than seats at the table. We are past that. Indigenous communities need to be at the forefront of strategic planning and equitable decision-making processes. You see what he says? He says, Indigenous communities, Moroccan Moors, need to be at the forefront of strategic planning and equitable decision-making processes. This is where we're at, especially with the WRC, the Wise River Regional Council. We are at the forefront of strategic planning to force decolonization. Thank you very much, Owen Oliver. Kinault Chinook Isleta Pueblo is a senior in the Department of American Indian Studies at the University of Washington. He is also the political science in the political science department, and his platform is on Indigenous education. Owen is the secretary for the Center for Native American Youth Advisory Board. Follow him on Twitter. All right. So that's Owen and his article. It was a short read, and it was germane to what we're discussing. Because what is he talking about? What did he say here? He said he talked about the trauma. This trauma is reinforced when campuses don't provide spaces for students. What trauma? The trauma of the miseducation of the people. So he's talking about police brutality as well, right? Where was it? The word decolonization has become a whitewashed. Okay, there it is right here. In the midst of this summer, protests against racism and police brutality. So this Indian guy claims racism and police brutality. Well, darn it, of all the people in so-called in the American jurisdiction who is really dealing with racism and police brutality, I yield. I yield for an answer. Who is really dealing with that? Right?
I have a question.
Yes, I'm all ears.
So if we are trying to remove power,
You got to speak up a little bit better, sister. I can't really hear you.
Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yes, this is a little better.
Okay. If we are strategically trying to remove power from the colonizers, why aren't we focusing on empowering all Moors to learn and to live with their trust and administer our own estate instead of, constantly being dependent on overall political power to be our trustee?
You were sort of going in and out, but I'm gonna make an attempt to answer your question if I understand your question. That's the purpose in what I was mentioning earlier, the educational reforms. The educational reform serves as a way to re-educate all the Moors. However, this movement is not for all the Moors. We've got a lot of Moorish Americans who's giving us pushback. You got Black people that don't even want to be Moors. So it's for those who got the eyes to see and the ears to hear. What's going to happen is after we come back from the ICJ, it's going to make headline news. And when they hear it in the news is when they now going to start decolonizing themselves. Is when they now will start realizing, oh man, this is actually Morocco and we are Moroccans and we're supposed to be Moorish, establishing Moorish governments and we're supposed to govern the land. Yes, we're supposed to be doing all that. But right now you think that you're Negroes, Blacks, colors, and you think that you came from Africa. You think that you're slaves of Africa, African slaves. So it's an uphill battle to get our people in line with these principles. So we leave it up to those who got the eyes to see and the ears to hear, who get this information, who is willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work to force decolonization. And then after we force decolonization, we can galvanize the rest of our people. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Islam. All right. So let's go to an interesting article here from the United Nations. These are 2 indigenous children, right? 2 children in Nukunonu, I think this is Hawaii, one of the 3 atolls that make up Tokelau in 2002. Today, fewer than 2 million people live under colonial rule in the 17 remaining non-self-governing territories. Tokelau has been on the United Nations list of non-self-governing territories since 1946. Decolonization. Somebody read this for me, please. It's short. It's a short read. Anyone?
Yeah, Islam, brother. Islam, brother. When the United Nations was founded in 1945, some 750 million people, nearly a third of the world's population, lived in territories that were dependent on colonial powers. Today, there are 17 non-self-governing territories remaining, and fewer than 2 million people live in them. The wave of decolonization, which changed the face of the planet, was born with the UN and represents the world's body first great success. As a result of decolonization, many territories became independent and joined the UN. The international trusteeship system was established by the UN Charter. Affirming the principles of self-determination, the Charter describes the responsibilities of states for territories under their administrations as a sacred trust in which the interests of their inhabitants are paramount.
Hold right there. So you see, it says the international trusteeship system was established by the United Nations Charter, affirming the principles of self-determination. We got to have the right we have the right to self-determination. We got to exercise the right to self-determination. Self-governance. That's the difference between majority and minority meant as it relates to the mind. We're supposed to govern ourselves, not allow others to govern us. Then it goes on to say the charter describes the responsibility of states for territories under their administration. That's what I was just reading in Article 73. So a colonizing power who is colonizing land, they're considered administrators as it relates to the United Nations. The United Nations call them administrators, right? So then it goes on, so it says, of states for territories under their administration as a sacred trust in which the interests of their inhabitants are paramount. So the interests of the people within these trust territories are paramount. And by the way, someone asked a question about the trust, that's the trust. These non-self-governing territories is our trust. That has been broken up into a bunch of little pieces, 50 pieces, 50 states. This is the reason why we have to approach this thing under what's called uti positivis juris. We have to take each territory back one at a time to then bring the entire puzzle together as the full trust. What we keep talking about, the propaganda trust and all this trust stuff, I don't think we understand what we're talking about when we talk about this trust. The trust is really the land. Morocco is the trust. So how do you take back the trust if Morocco is the trust? It's the empire. Islam, continue, Trusteeship Council.
Trusteeship Council. The charter also created the Trustee Council as a main organ of the UN. It was to monitor the situations in 11 specific quote-unquote trust territories, which were subject to separate agreements with administering states. These territories have been formally administered under mandates from the League of Nations, or separated from countries defeated in the Second World War, or voluntarily placed under the system by their administrating powers. 11 territories were placed under this system.
Continue.
Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and people. As the process of decolonization continued to advance, the General Assembly in 1960 adopted its landmark declarations on the granting of independence to colonial countries and people. The declaration affirmed the right of all people to self-determination and proclaimed that colonialism should be brought to a speedy and unconditional end.
Hold right there. Hold right there. Y'all, did y'all hear what the good brother read? Declaration on the granting of independence of colonial countries and people. Look at that title. Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples. All right. Doesn't do it. Why does this do it to me? This does it to me all the time. Okay, here we are. So, see it here? We'll be going over this real quick. Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples. Resolution 1514 of 1960. We've already went over this. We did a video on it. We'll touch on this briefly again as we continue reading the UN article. So it says, as the process of decolonization continued to advance, so the process of decolonization was already in place. Where were we? I'll tell you where we were. Marching and praying. Million Man March. While everybody else was forcing decolonization. How did they force their decolonization? By two things. They created two things. Let me show you those two things. Right here. Constitution.
Yep.
This is our Constitution right here. Law of Sankofa is what we call it. What else did these colonized states did? Colonized lands and colonized peoples. Declaration of statehood. or Declaration of Independence. In order to force decolonization, you need a constitution and a Declaration of Independence. Period. Where were we while everybody else was forcing decolonization? Well, we can say that we were the ones who we are the best that was saved for last, right? The bases are full. We're the ones up to bat. It's going to be what they call that, grand slam, right? So all these other states and all these other peoples, Moorish peoples, have established their independence throughout the world, and we're one of the few that's left. Why is that? I don't know. Clock of destiny. It was all time released. It's all by destiny that we were supposed to be the last to come in and put a nail in the coffin. Keeping in mind that we are utilizing treaties, whereas all these other colonized states do not have any treaties. We got a lot of power just based on those treaties, right? So then it goes on to say, where were we? The General Assembly in 1960 adopted its landmark declaration. They called it a landmark because a lot of states used it to force decolonization. Adopted its landmark Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. The declaration affirmed the right of all people to self-determination and proclaimed that colonialism should be brought to a speedy and unconditional end. So the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia brought about a speedy Americanization of the Moorish of the former Moors through colonization, and the Declaration on the Granting of the Independence of Colonial Countries and Peoples are bringing about a speedy and unconditional end to colonization. I choose the latter. Continue, brother. In 1990?
Okay. In 1990, the Assembly proclaimed the International Decade for the what is that?
Eradication.
I'm sorry, eradication of colonialism, 1990 to 2000, which introduced a specific plan of action. In 2001, it was followed by a second international decade for the eradication of colonialism. The end of the second decade coincided with the 15th anniversary of the Declaration on Granting of Independence to colonial countries and people. At the same time, the General Assembly declared the period 2011 through 2020 the third international decade for the eradication of colonialism. In 2020, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 75-123, declaring the period of 2021 through 2030 and the fourth international decade for the eradication of colonialism.
Hold that right there. So there's been a push for decolonization. What we're doing ain't nothing new. You know, we late to the party, man. It's been going on. In 1990, the Assembly proclaimed the International Decade for the Eradication of Colonialism of between 1990 and 2000. 1990 to 2000 was a decade of international, of the eradication of colonialism. Between 1990 and 2000, what we had going on? Million Man March, 1995, 1996. 1 million Moors was out there in the wrong jurisdiction, by the way. Why do I say the wrong jurisdiction? Because the United Nations is not headquartered in Washington, D.C. We should have had 1 million Moors with fezzes and turbans on standing in front of the United Nations, seeking justice, seeking answers to the test. Instead, we in the United States Municipal Corporation of Washington, D.C., the however many miles square. How many miles squares? I forget how many miles square.
10 miles.
10 miles, brother. It was in the treaty. 10 miles. They didn't leave it out. That's what.
Right. 10 miles square. Instead of being in New York, standing in front of the United Nations with our fences and turbans on, with picket signs like, yo, we want decolonization, something. If you're going to be petitioning, if you're going to be marching and praying and petitioning, you should be marching and praying and petitioning at the United Nations, not to the United States, which included a specific plan of action. In 2001, it was followed by a second international decade for the eradication of colonialism. The end of the second decade coincided with the 50th anniversary of the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. It came out in 1960. That means that was what 50 years later after 1960 is what? 2010? At the same time, the General Assembly declared the period 2011 to 2020 the third international decade for the eradication of colonialism. A third decade. That's 30 years. Right? In 2020, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 75-123, declaring the period 2021 to 2030 the fourth international decade for the eradication of colonialism. So what does that mean? That means that these Moroccan states fall under that period. The fourth international decade, which falls between 2021 and 2030. We are in 2023. We are going to shut it down. We're going to put an end to it all when Morocco comes back online. There is not going to be any more. There's not going to be a fifth international decade. It ends with us. It ends with us, period. This is the end. Continue, brother.
Since the creation of the United Nations, 80 former colonies have gained their independence. This includes all 11 trust territories, which have achieved self-determination through independence of free association with an independent state. The special committee continued to monitor the situation in the remaining 17 territories, working to facilitate achieving their decolonization.
Bingo. I think this is the end of this article. It's pretty short. Let's see. Yep, that's it. So let's read that again. Since the creation of the United Nations, 80 former colonies have gained their independence. 80 of them. 80. So let me ask you, so let me get this right. The United Nations is the devil, huh? The United Nations is harvesting children, aren't they? The United Nations is owned by the Rothschilds and the Rockefeller, huh? Come on, Moors. Listen to what's being said here. We've been tricked. We've been bamboozled. They have turned the United Nations into the boogeyman in our minds so that we can stay away from the United Nations. Because they know that the United Nations is the answer to our salvation based in decolonization. Since the creation of the United Nations, 80 former colonies have gained their independence. This includes all 11 trust territories, which have achieved self-determination through independence, Declaration of Independence, or free association with an independent state. The special committee continues to monitor the situation in the remaining 17 territories. So there's a special committee that's monitoring the situation in the remaining 17 territories, and they're working to facilitate the achievement of decolonization. When are Moors going to petition the special committee? Or is it that Moors think that we're not colonized? Oh yeah, I forget. Moors think that the United States belongs to them and the Constitution belongs to them. That's far from the truth. The United States is a separate foreign entity. The United States of America, the United States of North America Republic, however you want to put it, with the Republic, whatever, of the Constitution or for the Constitution, whatever. Neither one of them belongs to us. None of them. Nothing dealing with the United States belongs to us. I don't care how you word it. United States of America in Congress assembled. That's not ours. United States of North America Republic. That's not ours. any of the semantic terms for the United States. It's not ours. We are the Moroccans. Morocco is our government. Any form of the United States is are the foreigners. It was established by the British Moors, not Moroccan Moors. John Hanson was not a Moroccan Moor. Somebody please mute your mics. John Hanson and the other 8 so-called Moorish presidents were not Moroccan Moors. These were British Moors.
Islam, brother. 1764, Benjamin Franklin established the United States Corporation Company.
We are the Moroccan Moors. Period. Without a doubt or contradiction. So let's look at the signatory powers. I'll read this real quick. Decolonization, or decolonization with an S, is the undoing of colonialism. The latter being the process whereby imperial nations establish and dominate foreign territories, often overseas. You see that? Often overseas. In other words, across borders. So France had control over Burkina Faso, which is in Africa, but France is in Europe, right? Great Britain is colonizing South Africa. These are cross-border this is cross-border colonization. What's taking place with the United States is within our borders. This is what makes our fight unique. Because the colonists is right here cohabitating with us on our land. It's not across borders. It's not overseas. It's right here. Some scholars of decolonization focus especially on independence movements in the colonies and the collapse of global colonial empires. Other scholars extend the meaning to include economic, cultural, and psychological aspects of the colonial experience. Decolonization scholars form the school of thought known as decoloniality, and apply decolonial frameworks to struggles against the coloniality of power and the coloniality of knowledge within settler colonial states, even after successful independence movements. Indigenous and post-colonial scholars have critiqued Western worldviews, promoting decolonization of knowledge and the centering of traditional ecological knowledge. The scope, so it says here, the United Nations, UN, states that the fundamental right to self-determination is the core requirement for decolonization. Fundamental right to self-determination is the core requirement for decolonization, and that this can be, and self-determination means your 3 branches of government. And this right can be exercised with or without political independence. A UN General Assembly Resolution 1960, that resolution of 1960 is the granting of, I forget the long, it's a long title, we just went over it, but we'll be reading over that resolution real quick too, by the way. Characterized colonial foreign rules as a violation of human rights. Characterized colonial foreign rule as a violation of human rights. So the United States colonizing our land is a violation of human rights. In states that have won independence, indigenous people living under settler colonialism continue to make demands for decolonization and self-determination. Although examples of decolonization can be found as early as the writings of Thucydides, there have been several particularly active periods of decolonization in modern times. These include the breakup of the Spanish Empire in the 19th century, of the German, Spanish Empire in the 19th century, of the German, Austro-Hungary, Ottoman, and Russian Empire. So Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, all part of the, let me close this out.
Rights of Morocco, all of those were mentioned in the Madrid.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the point I was making.
Japanese wasn't created, in that timeline. They were still,
Yeah, that wasn't in there in that timeline. That wasn't part of that convention.
And they didn't get colonized until the U.S. bombed them. When they bombed them, then they came under the U.S. colonial rule.
Right, that comes after, exactly. Following World War I, and the British, French, Dutch, Portuguese, Belgian, Italian, all signatory powers, Morris. We just went over those. These are all the states of the Sultan. And Japanese empires following World War II, and of the Soviet Union at the end of the Cold War. Early studies of decolonization appeared in the 1960s and 1970s. An important book from this period was The Wretched of the Earth, 1961, by Martiniquan author Frantz Fanon, which established many aspects of decolonization that would be considered in later works. Subsequent studies of decolonization addressed economic disparities as a legacy of colonialism, right? As well as the annihilation of people's cultures. I am going to butcher this guy's name, and this is what he looks like. Gui wa Thiongo, right? Which is he's a Kenyan author and academic who writes primarily in Gikuyu and who formerly wrote in English. Okay. Explored the culture and linguistic legacies of colonialism in the influential book Decolonizing the Mind of 1986. Decolonization has also been used to refer to the intellectual decolonization from the colonizers' ideas that made the colonized feel inferior. So currently right now, white people got a false sense of superiority, and Black people got a false sense of inferiority. So you see what it says there? Decolonization has also been used to refer to the intellectual decolonization from the colonizers' ideas that made the colonized feel inferior. So the Moors, Black people, were colonized, and we feel inferior, don't we? We feel like we don't even know that this is our land. We came from Africa, and we're just slaves. And that everything, all this stuff belongs to the white man, and they are the power. They made us feel inferior. Issues of decolonization persist and are raised contemporarily. In the Americas and South Africa, such issues are increasingly discussed under the term decoloniality. All right. So let's show you something here. Let me show y'all something here. So you got Portuguese America, British Empire, French Empire. You see it there? French Empire. We talked about Morocco. In 1956, Morocco and Tunisia gained their independence from France. Well, what happened there? See, they're not being honest with this. See, they're talking about the Kingdom of Morocco, who was, the Sultan in 1912 gave France the authority over the empire. In 1956, the later Sultan didn't want no parts of it. So the only way to break away from the Treaty of Fez was to form a separate government, which would be the Kingdom of Morocco. So they didn't necessarily gain their independence from France. They gained their independence from the Treaty of Fez. It's a difference.
And deposited and promulgated their constitution with the UN.
That's what they did as the Kingdom of Morocco. United States. So we just went over France, Portugal, United States. Who else is here? Well, Japan is not a part of US and the Philippines. Portugal, there go Portugal. Belgium, Netherlands, United Nations Trust Territories. Real quick, let's read this real quick. When the United Nations was formed in 1945, it established trust territories. These territories included the League of Nations Mandate territories, which had not achieved independence by 1945, along with the former Italian Somaliland. The trust territory of the Pacific Islands was transferred from Japanese to US administration. See, the US administration, they were administering the territory. By 1990, all but one of the trust territories had achieved independence, either as independent states or by merger with another independent state. The Northern Mariana Islands elected to become a Commonwealth of the United States. So they're still subjugated. That's not decolonization. All right, let's continue. The colonization of Africa, you guys can go over that. That's a deep one. These are all the countries: United Kingdom, France, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Denmark, all of which were signatory powers to the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras, Moors. The Sultan brought them together and gave them the authority, a limited authority, to colonize Morocco. United Kingdom here, France, okay. I'm getting to somewhere. Challenges. I'm trying to find it. There's a section here that talks about Marcus Garvey, y'all. I think it's in the United States. I hate to be going back and forth on you. It's under the, but I'm trying to get to somewhere. If I run up, that's fine. You guys can go back and look over this article. But it talks about Marcus Garvey. So I want to show you a list. These are the assassinated anti-colonialist leaders, right? So they talked about Patrice Lumumba, right here. First democratically elected prime minister of the Congo was murdered by a Belgian supporter, Kadangan Zeparis, in 1961. All right, it's right here. United Nations non-self-governing states list, right? So as you see here, administering power and the territory. So you see here, United Kingdom was a territory. Anguilla, Bermuda, United Kingdom, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Falkland Islands. These are all in the Americas, so-called Americas. Montserrat, St. Helena, Turks and Caicos Island, Gibraltar, Pitcairn. That's United Kingdom. These are the territories that they're administering. 1946, 1946, 1946, all the way through 1946. Now, the United States has American Samoa, United States Virgin Island, and Guam. New Zealand has Tokelau. Spain has Western Sahara. France has New Caledonia, and also French Polynesia. Now, here's the thing. United States says America Samoa, United States Virgin Island, and Guam. Guess what it doesn't say on here? Morocco. I wonder why.
There's a treaty.
The empire is in a shallow grave, historically and all. They don't even speak about the empire. But we know it exists even historically. So when I say historically, I should have probably said general history, right? Their history. See, this is the aspect of colonization. Through colonization, mental colonization, we have lost touch with the empire. We don't even remember that it exists. This is why the educational reform is necessary, because the knowledge of the empire and the several sultans must come back into our consciousness. It's outside of our consciousness. If I ask you for 5 sultans, you'll struggle to give all 5. You probably could only give me one, Sidi Muhammad. If I ask you for 5 presidents, you can rattle off every last one of them. I can. George Bush, Obama, Clinton, Nixon, Trump, Biden. Easy. Try asking me 5 sultans. All I could probably tell you is Sidi Muhammad. Abdulaziz. Struggling after that. That's colonization. Decolonization means that now you know all your past sultans. You're aware of the empire. You're aware of the treaties. Colonization means you're not aware of the empire. You're not aware of the treaties. You're not aware of any of the sultans. You're not aware of yourself. You're not aware of your national identity. You think you're Negro, Black, colored, African American, Moorish American, Aboriginal, Cherokee, everything else. Egyptian, Pan-African, Hebrew Israelite, everything but Moroccan. These are the secrets of the ages that Manly P. Hall talked about. The secret of the secret ages of the world, or secrets of the ages, or something like that. I think it's us. We are the shrine. Moroccan identity, Moroccan treaties, the land of Morocco, Al Marak. We are the Al Maraks. They know this to be the fact and the truth. We don't, though, because we are in colonization, mental colonization of subjugated people, and the colonization of the land. This is that list right here. These are the remaining non-self-governing territories. Keeping in mind that the United States itself is a non-self-governing territory. However, they got them on here as some de jure state that has that's administering these other territories: Guam, United States, Virgin Islands, and American Samoa. That's farthest from the truth. I mean, yes, they are administering those areas, but then they're also administering Morocco. Why is that not on there?
To me, they didn't want United Kingdom to look bad, because all of them actually have to report to Fleet Street in London, you know, as far as any occupation territories that they're listed with. This is what their fiscal budgets is all about. Yeah.
What time is it? Going on 10. All right, let's close out. Shoot, I wanted to touch on this real quick. I'll touch on it real quick. So this is a consular court order. Let me move this out of the way so I can increase the font. This is a consular court order from our consular court. And look what it says: case concerning treaty rights of Moorish nationals in Morocco. Right? Alodia Moorish Parade, Monte, Georgia versus the United States of America, United States, and the state of Georgia. Sent out December 16, 2022. 1. Enforcement of Moorish constitutions, independent state sovereignty, human rights, birthrights, and the restoration of political jurisdictions of Moorish nationals in the Empire of Morocco. Effect: the triple principle of sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, economic liberty without any inequality, as corollary to the General Act of Algeciras 1906. Effect: paramount acceleration of political, economic, and social development as corollary to the Charter of the United Nations, Chapter 11. Effect: the choice to choose the entire submission to the laws of the empire and the rejection of capitulation regime, protege, and subject status as corollary to the Treaty of Madrid, 1880. Y'all ain't never heard no document that sound like this. This is not a writ and affidavit that came from Harvey Bay publication. This is a competent consular court order document, ministerial decrees. This is an order, a judicial order that came from a competent Moroccan state government judicial branch. 2, enforcement of competent Moorish government legislation and consular court ministerial decrees. Effect: scope of Moroccan law and consular court venues as being the supreme law of the land and natural corollary to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 1787 and 1836 and the Act of Algeciras 1906. I can continue on. For example, 3, prior American assent was ill-founded. This comes out of the case between France and the United States. This is what the ICJ said to the United States, that the prior American assent was ill-founded. They were saying that Moors needed to get permission from the United States to establish their states and to gain their self-determination. In other words, prior assent. So we need to get us permission from them now. That's ill-founded, according to the ICJ, but it's true. It's not according to the ICJ. It's according to the treaties. The ICJ just interpreted the treaties and came with that conclusion that it was ill-founded. Prior American assent was ill-founded as the citizens of the United States of America are subject in principle to the application of Moroccan law. This is what we are telling them. In fact, the substantive decision by the International Court of Justice, case regarding France versus United States of America, 1952, is authoritative and final as corollary to customary international law, period. This is how we're talking to them from our consular court. Let's see what else. There's so much. The Qadi and the creation of taxes, revenue, and validity of deeds by Moorish governments. And then we just read that in Article 60 of the Treaty of the Act of Algeciras. Now we're invoking it in this consular court order. No different than this one here. Ratify Moroccan law for the responsibility of international organizations in Morocco. In fact, enactment of Moorish legislation to prosecute the United States for international wrongful acts as corollary to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1836, Articles 20, 21, and 24, 42, and the Act of Algeciras, Articles 101, 102, 120, and 123, inter alia. Okay? So I'm just giving y'all a brief. These are the orders. By order of Consular Court in Morocco, presiding Chief Judge Isaac El Mahdi Bey, the Registrar Fahim Razin El, and the order concerning the territorial treaty rights of competent Moorish state governments and the treaty obligations of the United States of America and its international organizations to relinquish all forms of colonialism and deposit each trust territory and all its effects back into the hands of Moorish states in Morocco. This is an order from consular court. You're not used to this type of language. Yeah, you're used to the writs and affidavits, but you ain't used to this. So it's us, Alodia Morris Paradium, Ante, Georgia, represented by Amaru El Hiram Bey, Hajib, Department of the Minister of Affairs, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Laurent Watson Ali, Consul General, Mr. Abdul Smith Bey, Prime Minister, Tyree Bey, Qadi, Ugam Kahani Bey, Speaker, Matriarchal Council as Legislator, and then the United States of America. The United States Federal Corporation is an international organization and by officials of the United States District of Columbia and United States represented by Joseph Biden, President, Office of the United States, Nancy Pelosi, Charles Schumer, Merrick Garland, all of them. Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, Linda Thomas Greenfield, United States Security Council Representative, all of them. They're all getting it. Janet Yellen, pending controller and holder of the key. And the state of Georgia, represented by Christopher Michael Carr, Attorney General. Where he at? Brian Kemp, Governor, Office of the Governor, etc. They all got this letter. A proclamation in honor of our ancient foremothers and forefathers. Jay ran over this. He read this in one of the classes. I think it was 98, 97. So this is what a competent consular court order looked like, Morris. And this has been sent off to the United States. All right, so let me show you at the very end of it who we CC'd. This is decolonization. It's so much. It's an excellent read. This document. Second contention is there's no excuse for the state's political decision to oppress Moors by disenfranchisement from private schools, good jobs, health insurance, right to vote, and reliable child care programs for working women, etc. There's no excuse for Moors to serve 4 years to life in jail for nonviolence. Excuse for the United States to give other foreign countries millions and billions in currency while inner city Moorish parents and Moorish children don't even have enough currency to buy school lunch. There's no excuse not to pay high-skilled, six-figure salaries in the pursuit of teaching under deprived students and underfunded school buildings and faculty. Just a brief on what this thing looks like, more. This is what you'll be sending out to the United States once you establish your state. You'll receive this document. I'm trying to get to the part where we CC'd everybody, so you can see this long list of people that's been part of this conversation, this judicial order. Okay, here it is. All right, here we are. Kingdom of Norway, United Arab Emirates, United Mexican States, Republic of Kenya, right? Republic of Albania, Russian Federation, Republic of China, International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, United Kingdom of Great Britain, United Nations Department of Peace Operations. All these people were CC'd in this email. We sent them an email, and then we also sent them a hard copy. There's so much more that I can go over in this particular document, but the time is running out. So I'm going to move on to close out with the final document. Okay. Effect. Moroccan treaties are the supreme law of the Empire of Morocco, and the privileged United States of America and the United States and its several union states and agents, inter alia, shall adhere to the above mentioned ministerial decrees of the competent consular court of AMPAG, or fines, penalties, and confiscations will be sentenced for wrongful act by the foreign state and its international organization in accordance to the Act of Algeciras and the international law of Alodia Morris Paradia, Ante, Georgia. I'm gonna end this read right here, this document, this consular court order. But where it talks about fines, penalties, and confiscations, that's Article 102 of the Treaty of the Act of Algeciras. So we're invoking Article 102 of the Act of Algeciras upon them. This is how this works. Judicial orders come from the consular court. It comes from your court. It comes from your judge. It doesn't come from you. Not at all, Morris. All right. So to close out. Will come right here. It's a long preamble, but it's a short read nonetheless. It's only 7 articles. Resolution 1514, Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, the General Assembly. Now you guys listen up. Mindful of the determination proclaimed by the peoples of the world in the Charter of the United Nations to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights and the dignity and worth of the human person, and the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, and to promote social progress and better standards for life in larger freedom. Conscious of the need for the creation of conditions of stability and well-being and peaceful and friendly relations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of all peoples, and of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. Recognizing the passionate yearning for freedom in all dependent peoples and the decisive role of such peoples in the attainment of their independence. Aware of the increasing conflicts resulting from the denial of or impediment in the way of the freedom of such peoples, which constitute a serious threat to world peace. Look how they talking. Look how they talking, Morris. Considering the important role of the United Nations in assisting the movement for independence in trust in non-self-governing territories. I'll read that again. Considering the important role of the United Nations in assisting the movement for independence in trust in non-self-governing territories. Man, listen. We can't lose. The path that we're on is a winning path without a question. We can't lose. All we gotta do is petition the United Nations as competent Moors with 3 branches of government. That's it. Recognizing that the peoples of the world inherently desire the end of colonialism in all its manifestations. So the United Nations has recognized that the peoples of the world ardently desire the end of colonialism in all its manifestations. Every aspect of it, the people are tired of it. Convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic cooperation, impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples, and humiliates against the United Nations ideal of universal peace. Somebody has to mute their mics. Somebody please mute your mic. I'm not sure who it is. Affirming that peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principles of mutual benefit in international law, believing that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crisis, an end must be put to colonialism and all practices of segregation and discrimination associated therewith. Morris, this was in the 1960s. Wasn't there a bunch of discrimination and segregation taking place? They were talking to us. It's in New York. The United Nations is in New York. And as I just pointed out in one of the other articles, it says that the special committee is monitoring, excuse me, is monitoring the progress of decolonization. The United States is being monitored, and so is our states. Our Moroccan states are being monitored right now as we speak. Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories into freedom and independence. They are welcoming this and recognizing the increasingly powerful trends towards freedom in such territories which have not yet attained independence, such as New York, such as North Carolina. They're working on it though. They shall achieve independence. It's still a non-self-governing trust territory. Also California. I just got off the phone with some folks from California, sisters from California. All right, go back, got to slide over here. Okay, convinced that all peoples have an inalienable right to complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and the integrity of their national territory, period. Solemnly proclaims the necessity of bringing to a speedy and unconditional end colonialism in all its forms and manifestation. Solemnly proclaims the necessity of bringing to a speedy and unconditional end colonialism in all its forms and manifestations, Morris. And to this end, declares that, 1, the subjection of peoples to alien subjugation, domination, and exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights and contrary to the Charter of the United Nations and is an impediment to the promotion of world peace and cooperation. Article 2, all peoples have the right to self-determination, period. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. 3, inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. So we're doing the most. We're doing too much, actually. Because it says here, inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. So we could be basically incompetent and still gain the independence if we know what we're doing. But we're doing extra stuff. We got the Wazir Regional Council and the Regional Supreme Court, which is a regional agency, according to the United Nations Charter. The Pacific Article, Chapter 6, the Pacific Settlements of Disputes. We didn't have to do that, but guess what? We did it. So that's even more impressive because we're coming with a different level of competence. We're not just relying on Article 3, inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness. No, we're not relying on that. We're coming with all the power that we can potentially come with. We can't lose. And we will not lose. 4, all armed action or repressive measures of all kinds directed against dependent peoples shall cease in order to enable them to exercise peacefully and freely their right to complete independence, and the integrity of their national territory shall be respected. period. 5, immediate steps shall be taken in trust and non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence to transfer all powers to the peoples. And then what the Black Panthers used to say, all power to the people. Read that again. Immediate steps shall be taken in trust and non-self-governing territories. This is the United Nations talking to the signatory powers, the member states, the United States in our case, or all other territories which have not yet attained independence, to transfer all powers to the peoples of those territories without any conditions or reservations, in accordance with their freely expressed will and desire, without any distinction. Let me slide it over. Without any distinction as to race, creed, or color, in order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom. Period. Why are we wasting time? This came out in 1960. 80 states have forced decolonization, utilizing this document. And y'all think we're gonna lose? And I'm not saying y'all like y'all, but generally speaking generally, you can't lose. We just have to petition them. We have to petition the United Nations. We haven't petitioned them yet because we're still lining up our chess pieces before we move forward with a petition. See, we're not coming at them from an incompetent way. We're coming at them from the most competent way that we can potentially come at them with. We're petitioning the United Nations to petition the ICJ to take the United States to court, period. We don't even have to do that. But guess what? We are. We're taking it to the max. We're going all in. 6, any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity and the territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. And finally, 7, all states shall observe faithfully and strictly the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the present Declaration on the Basics of Equality, non-interference in the internal affairs of all states, and respect for the sovereign rights of all peoples and their territorial integrity. That ends the class for the day. I closed it out with with Resolution 1514, right? Which is, what is it called? Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples. So to close out, I'd like to say, decolonization is right around the corner, Morris. The Moorish Americans may not necessarily agree with what it is that we're doing, or even understand. They don't agree because they don't understand, and they don't understand because they're not studying. And we're trying to give them the reference points, but they're not necessarily looking into the reference points because, according to them, the prophet didn't bring it. So if the prophet didn't bring it, I'm not reading it. Okay, well, the prophet didn't bring any of he didn't bring what's that book? They came before Columbus, Ivan Van Sertima. You read that though, don't you? Well, how about you just try reading the treaties? This is ridiculous when you say the prophet didn't bring it, so I'm not going to study it. Now you're in worship. It's ridiculous. We got to step out of that and get into scholarship. The prophet said study, study, study. And he also said that the other half wasn't told. This is the other half. International law, statehood, decolonization, utilizing our Moorish treaties to gain our independence and sovereignty and our salvation. We must choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire. The prophet was stepping out of the cares of the world, which is the American jurisdiction, Admiralty law, onto the rock of salvation, which is Morocco. He's choosing between the entire submission to the laws of the empire. The 101s, the cover on the 101s is a demonstration that relates to Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid, the nationalization clause, the repatriation clause. We got to repatriate back to Morocco. come out of the United States of America jurisdiction as naturalized persons, corporations and such, who have no human rights, just civil rights. And even those get violated from time to time. Because the laws of the country shall apply to us without any restrictions as long as we continue acquiescing and remain subjugated, naturalized under the jurisdiction of the United States, American jurisdiction. Their criminal and judicial, their criminal and civil jurisdiction, their courts, their law enforcement. The only way out of that is to choose between the entire submission. And since the Moroccan Empire is no longer available, we have to establish our own states. And then all those states will come together under erga omnes parties to then reestablish the Empire of Morocco. This is where we're at right now. We've got 6 states as part of the WRC. We're looking to bring in 2 more, which would be the Trust Territory of New York and the Trust Territory of North Carolina. So I look forward to you more coming online. Islam, so I yield with that. I open up the floor for any questions, comments, or concerns before we close out. Islam, I yield.
I just want to say you did a wonderful job. I learned a lot.
Wazir Camden from Dempsey, I appreciate you, my good brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Islam, brother. Anything you want to share from the visit of the last class? We all heard you, reading out loud, brother. Anything you want to share with us with your trip or the trip that you guys went on? Congrats, by the way.
Oh man, and interesting point. I forgot to mention that. So that's why we missed last week. Last week we didn't have class because I was in we were in the AMPAG jurisdiction. It was the brother that just spoke, Camden, which is the Wazir for Dempsey, Ante, Texas. He was there. Man, we had an excellent time. Believe it or not, which I mean, you could tell in the videos, the good brother Jay Bay, he's actually quite down to earth. We played some bones and I put something on him. He ain't appreciate that. We was out there playing bones, getting to know each other, man. We had an excellent time. But we also learned a lot. He broke down a lot of information. You know how it is when you're in person. You learn a lot from that. We learned a lot from the good brother. He broke down a few things. We had a good discussion, and some strategy planning as it relates to what it is that we're doing. Being in real time in the class was also very awesome. If you guys didn't get a chance, please go back and watch class 100. It was an excellent class, and towards the end, it got kind of funny. It was funny. It was quite hilarious. You'll see what I'm talking about when you watch our study session 100. The end of the class was hilarious. We all just bust out laughing. Met his mother, awesome sister. I gave her my gratitude, my thanks for bringing J Bay into the world. He has done an excellent job in first studying to then identify the proper direction that we need to go, and he shared it with the people for free. And now when you go back and you read these reference points, like this particular document that I just read, you see the reference points, you see the answers to the test. This is not something that he made up or something that came out of his own mind. It comes from his own studies that now he's passing it on to the people so that the people can have the reference point and basically the reference point to know which way to go. Sometimes you just don't know you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what you don't know, then you don't know where to go. So he found out which way to go, and he has passed that information on to all of us, and now we all know which way to go, and that would be international law in our Morris treaties. But yes, it was an excellent visit, and we do plan on doing it every year as a caucus meeting amongst all of our states. And I hope I answered your question, brother. Yeah, it was an excellent visit, man, and we look forward to doing it again, good brother. We surely are.
Absolutely, brother. And I encourage everyone that's on the line, which is counted 42, But everyone I encourage to listen in to the teacher. You know, J. Jermaine Bay is a great erudition and clarity in the information he is bringing forth. I mean, he did, you know, I've definitely went over the material, and he's definitely accurate. One thing I could definitely say he cleared up is we are not Moorish American, and he
That's correct. That's correct.
so yeah, brother, but the brother is you know, definitely a divine spirit and right on time, you know. So I yield with that.
That's right. I call that good brother Saint Jermaine Bay. I've been calling him that since day one. Anyone else?
I want to add in, if you pay attention to Jay will let you know he was a Moorish American at one time. It's just like a part of the process. But when you come to a certain consciousness, it's just certain things you have to understand, period. With that, I yield.
Islam, brother, it's growing pains. You know what I mean? We it's like we all had to go through that experience to really come to what they say full circle. You know, nothing can be left out, because if left out, we will make the mistake as we're going forward. So nothing can be left out. Islam.
Okay. So I was saying that the good brother Taj Tariq Bey taught us something. He taught us that you go through the process of belief, faith, and then you come to fruition. This is where we're at in fruition. We're coming back full circle, right? We're now in a status of fruition. Fruition meaning to know. And you gain knowledge and you become Gnostic based on your studies. So when you study international law, it brings you into the status of knowing. You know, we know, all the Moroccan states and the Moroccan officials, we know that this is the right way to go because the treaty said so, because international law said so. I just read to you several things directly coming off the United Nations Charter, right? Especially this Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, or Resolution 1514. That language that's in there, we know that we're on the right path. This is fruition. We're not in faith. We're not in belief. Faith and belief is for followers. Fruition is for scholars. You come to fruition and you come to know based on your scholarly efforts. And so this is the beauty and the reference points that's being shared in the AMPAG study sessions, because it brings you full circle into the mindset of fruition, the status of fruition, knowing, Gnosticism, right? Knowing which way to go. For far too long, there's been a mishmash of misinformation, confusion, everybody being led astray, going in all these different types of directions. You got the Temple Moors, you got the Civic Moors, all a mishmash. Well, right now we have the Moroccan Moors, and this is more of a direct, focused approach to our salvation, which is based in decolonization, adhering to international law principles and the customary norms of international law and statehood. And on this path, we cannot lose, because on this is a focused path. We're all in it together. We're all on the same train, on the same tracks, headed in the same direction. It's not a bunch of cars going in a bunch of different directions. One making a left at the right turn at the light, the other one making a right at the stop sign, the other one just going straight through, and nobody's going in the right direction. Nobody knows which way we're going. That's the old paradigm. This new paradigm is focused. We're all on the same train, we're all on the same track, and we're all going in the same direction. Islam. I yield for another question or comment or concern before we close out. It's almost 10:30.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to know, did you say you were reading from the Declaration of the United Nations that had your footer at the bottom of it? Someone in the comments said that the AMPAM has one as well, but I haven't seen that before.
You haven't seen what? Could you clarify what you're asking?
Something that they said the UN, I can't even, I'm not sure. It was the last thing that you were reading that had your footer at the bottom of it, that had AMPAG's footer.
Oh, the consular court order.
Okay, consular court order.
Are you referring to this document here that I have on the screen?
Yes, this one is the one I'm talking about.
This one here. Okay, what about it?
I want to know where can I find this? Is this on your website?
No, that's not on my website. And no one has access to this unless they have established their state. Once you establish your state, you establish your sovereignty and independence, which is the first of the triple principles. The second stage to the establishment of your state is integrity of domains. This deals with your ascensions to the treaties, writing your legislation, setting up in your consular court and enforcing your consular court orders, etc. Your national trust, your state ID, your nationality paperwork, etc. So that's integrity of domain. When you reach that level, when you reach that stage, you will get this document.
Okay, Islam. That's what Empress is saying that my statehood should have one already. I just never saw that before in any of our meetings.
The AMPAG has it. AMPAG is good. AMPAG went through and checked all the boxes. This is why they're recognized. They're a recognized state who's part of the WRC because they checked all the applicable boxes that gives them the full powers to where they're found in good and due form, as we've read in these other conventions and documents that we just read. So yeah, they've got that document already. Makazi, our judge, helped them with that, with putting those documents together.
All right, Islam. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. Well, with that said, Moors, we'll close out. This was another excellent build. I appreciate everyone that's on the line. And obviously, we'll do it again next Sunday. Keep an eye out on the Telegram. Peace, love, and prosperity to you all. And may the blessings of Allah be upon you all. Peace, love, and prosperity. Islam.
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 Peace.
Islam.
Yeah, me too.
Islam.
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 Islam.